So welcome back to Dino's Garage for the VFR750 RC36 project. Right, so here we are. We're going to remove this rear wheel. Now, as I explained before, I use my rubber mallet and obviously the wheel wrench that comes with the bike. So just a case of giving it a tap like that, and the rubber mallet shocks it. Actually, I should have done it this way around in the first place, is because I've undone these 4 bolts and the tyre is just pinching on the back of the exhaust pipe here, the end can. What I'm going to do is undo this here, and I then should be able to undo it here, remove the end can, and then that should leave it clear for that wheel to come straight out and get the other one in. Now we should have enough space to remove that wheel, and if we don't, which it still looks like we don't, because of the way the rim on this side is coming into the swing arm, we have to undo this bit and take this section off, or we might be able to just undo it and pivot it, but either way got to be taken off. So as you can see, as I've undone that, that's worked that loose, and now finally we got our wheel off. Now this is a perfect opportunity to be looking at the swing arm, checking things in here. You can see the hub here. The bike's currently in gear. Got a bit of surface rust on the disc, but really that's absolutely nothing at all. But I can take the opportunity now, if I wanted to clean anything here, to clean this brake caliper. There's a little bracket on the back here which holds the rear hose in place. I can put a bit of cure rust on there and touch that up, and I can clean the swing arm all into the whole shop area, because you're not going to get the opportunity to do that with the wheel in place. I can also see the exhaust, lower expansions of the chamber of the exhaust, the linkage of the shock. So there's a whole array of things that I can now see, and if I want to, I can work on and clean before actually putting that wheel on. So I'll take that opportunity to do that now, especially just cleaning the swing arm here, because you're just not going to be able to do that normally. And so there we are, the swing arm has all been cleaned out, and the shock, I've just got in there as much as I can for now, and just given it a good clean with hot soapy water and some brushes. Yeah, and it's really come up really clean, to be honest. You can see in there, if I just adjust the camera, that it all looks pretty clean. It's not perfect, but it's, you know, it looks nice. There's no corrosion to that swing arm, no corrosion to that shock. Actually quite lucky with this shock and this bike, because this has actually got a Hargon shock that's been fitted, and you can see that remote reservoir sort of lead running up there to adjust the shock itself. So yeah, that's another good bonus with this particular bike. But yeah, like I say, it's all looking clean and nice. So all I'm going to do now is give it a blast with this thing. Let's have a look. Now this is a tool that I've bought fairly recently. Really excellent tool. There we go, and you can see this is one of the attachments. That's a fairly thin sort of blade, so as the air comes out, it comes out at, you know, higher pressure through that thin blade. You can really blast air and dry the bike off. It's also got heat if I need it, So when it's really cold like this, I can use heat and then warm it up, and it will warm up the air just like a hairdryer and blast the warm air out to, you know, really dry it off quicker. Let's switch it on, you can hear it. So I think from the sound that gives you an idea of just how high pressure the air is that blasts out of there, and all this now is pretty much all dry. So yeah, a really good tool if you need to ever dry your bike, you want to wash it in the winter time and then dry it off quick. Get yourself one of those. Right, now let's get that wheel back on. So we'll just pivot that pipe back out of the way, and hopefully our wheel will go back in and we can just bolt it straight on. Got to be really careful actually, it's very easy to scrape these studs on the inner part of your rim, and this is a newly painted wheel, so the last thing I want to do is be knocking these studs against this lovely rim here. But with that pipe in the way, I think things are going to get awkward, so I'm going to actually unbolt this, pivot this pipe right out of the way, take this off. I'm not going to take any risks with damaging the new wheel. Perfect fit. Actually that was pretty loose, so good job on taking this off. But it's only 2 bolts, so sometimes you've got to do the easy thing to save yourself a lot of grief, because we would not want to be scratching that wheel. And removing this means that we have all the clearance we need. So yeah, don't be afraid to take things off of a bike that you didn't really plan on taking off. These are the mistakes I've made in the past, not taking off things that are actually pretty easy. Now we've got to just remove that right out of the way like that, and our wheel should go straight in there. There we go. Now one thing I am going to do just before actually doing up these bolts is get our friend Auto Sol metal polish and just squeeze a bit onto this very fine wire wool, and just make sure that the ends of these bolts are nice and clean. It does pay to look around this area just to make sure that they're not furred up in any sort of way, because at the end of the day they're going to be what's holding your wheel against the hub. And I will need to check the torque setting in a minute, and I'll tell you what that is. So we do this wheel up in a crisscross pattern, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, so it's in tight, and then we'll torque it to the right setting onto the bike. Looking nice though. So what I've done just a second ago is just take a socket, the right size socket, and I've just done these bolts up finger tight like that in a crisscross pattern until that's in place and of reasonable tightness against the hub. Now I'm going to go and find out what the torque setting is, and I'm going to torque these up again in a crisscross pattern until they're perfectly torqued, and I'll be putting it into first gear so the wheel doesn't rotate as I get that torque setting sorted out. Right, so this is my bigger torque wrench. Now this only has foot-pounds on this. Now it is 108 Newton meters the torque setting for these bolts, and that, when you do a conversion using whatever you want to as a search engine, it actually converts to 79 foot-pounds. So 108 Newton meters is 79 foot-pounds. So I'm going to get this socket on here now and obviously tighten this up to the right torque setting. Like I say, you want to work in a crisscross pattern. I'm going to actually extend off a little so I don't accidentally mark the wheel with the actual wrench. And as you can see, as you go to tighten, the wheel wants to rotate. So what you need to do is get the bike into first gear, and that will stop it from actually rotating. Let's do that now. So that's it into first gear, and as you can see, straight away I can begin to tighten this because the gearing actually prevents the wheel from rotating. Now, as you can imagine, with wheel bolts, 108 Newton meters is pretty tight. So I'm going to actually come this side. There we go. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's all 4 bolts done up to the right torque setting. Take it back out of first gear and we can just spin it just to check things, make sure things are all right. It's interesting. I was wondering what that weird noise was. And so there we are, there's our new wheel, our first wheel off the first bike, all painted white, back on here. We've cleaned all of the swing arm, cleaned all in behind there, so all looks good. The wheel nuts have been polished, so yeah, it looks really nice, really clean, exactly how we wanted it to be. So yeah, been a bit of a journey because we had the problem obviously with that bent wheel, so you know, this is where we had to be to change it all over. But there's the finished article, and yeah, it looks really nice. Really pleased with that now. Looks absolutely brilliant. But there is one issue. This valve stem here that they put on when they did the wheel painting fails on the brake. So annoyingly, the whole lot has to come off, and they have to take the tyre off and change that valve stem, and then I'll put it all back on again. Brilliant. Right, so here we are back again with the VFR750 RC36's. Now, as you can see, this has got the right size valve back in the wheel now. So yeah, unfortunately I had to wait a week. Picked this wheel up yesterday with the correct valve now fitted. So now we can get this back on the second VFR RC36 and get the wheel torqued up to the right setting, which should be as per as I left it on that large torque wrench. So yeah, let's get this on now. So we're back to where we were before. We've already cleaned up in here into the swing arm. Now what I will do, as I've got a little bit of time today, I'm actually going to just break off the surface of this slightly rusty steel bracket here for the brake hose, and put a bit of cure rust on there, and then get a little bit of spray paint and dab that on, just because I can, because I've got the access now to do it. I may as well do that. The other temptation is also to spray this box of the exhaust down here. The problem is it's too windy today, and if I try and spray today, I'm going to have a lot of overspray getting all over the swing arm and everywhere where I don't want it to be, so it's a bit of a shame. But yeah, because that is a little bit rusty, and it's been cleaned and washed, so it would be ideal to spray it. I'll see how I get on. I might go. So what I've done is I've sprayed a bit of silver paint into this lid here. I just had a tiny little bit left in the can, which I leave in the garage for these sort of things. It's always good to leave even the tiniest bit of black paint, silver paint or whatever in cans, and don't throw them out, because if you ever need to apply the finished amount of paint to a bracket or something just to make it look good, just to protect it, you know, and you know, doing what we're doing now, yeah, so just a little tip really, don't ever throw those cans of paint away even though they have the tiniest amount of paint in them, because you may need them for such, you know, a purpose such as this. So I've put a little first coat of silver paint on that bracket, so already it's looking better and it looks silver rather than rusty. I'll let that dry and then I'll come back and apply a second coat to there. But that's all I needed to do there. So as you can see, this is the pipe that fits down onto the exhaust here. This is basically our back box, which, as I explained before, is a little bit sort of tired, needs a bit of spray paint on there to make it look nice. And this is the chrome pipe that comes up to our end can, and that also should be black just on that end piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this bit black down here, and then get a bit of spray paint, mask this up and get a bit of spray paint on there before I put the wheel on and put the exhaust back in, all in its place, just so everything is as tidy and as neat as it can look, really, just for the sake of it, because all we were really doing is changing the wheel, but we need to do as many things as we possibly can whilst we change that wheel. So that's what I'm going to get on with now, spraying that and spraying this. So just with those down pipes, it's just going to be thin light coats. I'm working fairly close to what I'm spraying, so I'm going to be really thin here. The reason I'm close is because I don't want to get overspray on other things. But by being too close, you can obviously make the paint too thick, which is not good. We don't want that. So just light coats, just like that. That'll dry pretty quickly in the sun, and already that's looking completely different to how it was before, but that will dry and look a little bit tired again. We need to build up the coats on that. This is what I'm using, by the way, is PJ1 Fast Black, which is specifically designed for exhaust. It's a satin black paint, so you can get similar to this, Simonit's PJ1. This is one of the sort of leading brands really of, certainly in the UK, of exhaust paints. So what I'm going to do now is just put a bit of masking tape and paper around this section so I can hold it, and then I'll just spray this away from the bike and get a bit of paint on here. But I need to clean that first, as well as, because it is dusty and dirty, so I'll also use a bit of alcohol wipe to clean anything off of there, and then mask it up. And there we are, that is our exhaust collector box, the back box that obviously runs up to our end pipe now, all blacked out and painted. Just done 3 light coats just to make it look that much better, and as you can see it's still masked off there, and also the tailpipe that runs up to that back end can, that's also been painted, so I'm leaving that to dry now. It's windy and sunny, so it should dry quite quickly even though it's pretty cold, and then I'll get that bolted up properly once the wheel's back on. So now we've done that, we can get the wheel on. Well, I think we'd agree that that all looks pretty nice and clean in there now. I could spend hours and hours really detailing and getting toothbrushes and everything in to every little detail there, but yeah, it all looks pretty clean, fairly newish looking now. So what I'm going to do is get our nicely new painted wheel onto the bike with the correct size valve, of course, that doesn't foul on that brake, and then we're pretty much all done. We can get the exhaust back into place. So yeah, let's crack on and finally get that rear wheel on. Always work your wheel nut backwards initially, just to make sure that it locates onto the thread, and then start turning it in. It's just to avoid cross threading. That's it, all torqued up, back into place, as neat and as tidy as I can get it to some degree. In the back there we can see that silver painted bracket. You know, you could have got a brush in there and done it, but it's a lot easier with the wheel off. And the exhaust down there obviously is virtually impossible to spray with the wheel in place, and you'll be getting paint on your tyre and possibly on your wheel as well as. So that's all looking much better now, much tidier. So now I can get the exhaust on, get that extender pipe back in, and then we can get that tailpipe, the end can, bolted back in place there, and we're all done then with the whole rear wheel situation, hopefully. So one of the things I'm going to do is tackle this sort of scuff mark across the tank here. It's got no dents, a tiny sort of scratches, if you like, across this lacquer here. It's had sort of that scuff go across. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use T-cut, rubbing compound, and our old friend, very old friend, the stain go. I'll start with the stain go and see if I can remove the worst of the scratches and then work my way backwards towards the T-cut. So let's get going and see if we can remove, like I say, this scuffing from across the tank. Let's have a look. So first up is the stain go. So I'm just going to gently rub it on there. Initially it's going to take out the scratch just because there was dirt in that blemish. So that will lightly scratch the surface of the lacquer, and I can still see that I've got those scratches in the lacquer from this angle. So the stain go's got the worst of it out. I don't want to go too heavy on the stain go because it is in effect abrasive, and you know, you can start cutting that lacquer back a bit too much. This is the rubbing compound. You can hear it. Cutting in. So what it will do is take out heavier scratches and put in finer scratches. I'm never going to remove it completely because some of those scratches are, you know, fairly deep. It's not scratches, more scuffs. Like a scuff across the face. But if I can get it to the point where it's not noticed, that's job done for me. And a bit heavy there with the T-cut, but it's not a problem. I'm just sort of going over the whole surface of the tank just to pick up any dirt and debris that's sort of ingressed into any scratches, and the T-cut will pull that out. Then we can finish up with a decent wax polish after. And there we go. The light's not great, unfortunately. It's a bit of a dull day, but it has pretty much disappeared. There are some very light scuffs in the lacquer, but because it's white and at the moment, certainly with the light, you can't really pick them up. And mostly what I've done is clean out any of those scratches of any dirt, so it's pretty much not noticeable anymore. So I'm happy with that. I think, you know, on a brighter sunnier day I'll have a bit of better light, I can polish it, but I'm happy that that's pretty much taken away that issue, so that's good. And so there we go, there is the bike now with the exhaust back in place. Everything's looking tidy. As you can see, that all looks nice down here where it's been resprayed in that satin black PJ1 paint. Taken some water sol and polished up the pipe. So yeah, all looking really nice and tidy there, looking good. The wheels all in place and torqued up. So yeah, really nice really. What I might end up doing once all the plastics are on, I will see, because really we don't need this rear set part here. Not only is it adding extra weight to the bike, but you know, normally this is for your passenger on the back, and obviously this is where you would bolt your exhaust pipe in, but we've got a high level pipe here and there's a bracket that's been put on here for that, so this really isn't needed at all. So I may end up removing this completely, and to be honest it would look nicer just having that chrome pipe coming up and seeing through to the single side swing arm and wheel than having this in place. So that'll probably come off eventually. I just need to look and see how the fairings fit on, because I believe it might bolt in through that there, so I might have to make a little bracket to take that bolt when I put the fairing on, and then I can remove that. So that's it, all done for now. Thanks for watching Dino's Garage, and we're really now getting towards a point where we put on all the plastics and then we look at what we do with regards to colour scheme. I have a few ideas in mind, but yeah, stay tuned for the VFR750F RC36's. Stay tuned and thanks for watching. I tell you what, now we got that exhaust back on in place, let's start it up again and listen to that V4 engine.